My husband wants to divorce me over a hot dog. So I, 25 female, with my husband, 29 male, have a good relationship. Well, did. Now, my husband really loves hot dogs. I personally think they're gross. He's tried to get me to try them, and I tell him no every time. Well, we were watching Futurama, and I was hungry, so he said he would get me a snack. Little did I know it was a hot dog. When he returned with a hot dog, I said, quote, "Baby, you know I dislike hot dogs," almost in a playful way. He just snapped. Started yelling and screaming. Why won't you just try it for once and stop being a baby? Then he just said, "Divorce now." And went upstairs and locked the door. Like, Reddit, what should I do? Update. So when he came out of the room, he said he didn't want to talk and just went outside and left to probably go to his parents' place. Then in the morning, he came back and said he's ready to talk. He said he wanted to talk, and he said the reason he blew up is because he's done with my childlike behavior. Then he just sighed and said he's been cheating on me with my older sister. And when I threatened to leave him, he said he was sorry, but she's just more mature and not childish over a hot dog. Then again, I threatened to leave, and he just handed me his phone and looked away. His phone showed lots of bad things, like excessive pics, them doing it, and bad texts from my sister. Since I don't want to keep writing, we're getting a divorce over something more than a hot dog. Cheating. I'm done writing for now, but I'll try to update.
Am I the astronaut for not wanting my husband to go to his ex's funeral? I'll admit I'm biased right off the bat. I couldn't stand her. I call her his ex to myself and others. He called her his friend. We're all in our early 40s. She died recently. Aneurysm. I've been with him for 10 years now, but he'd known her for 20 plus. The way he tells it, they were friends in college, decided to date, got married, and then realized they weren't a great couple and just decided to be friends. All that happened years before I met him. He was clear early on that she was important. A couple months into dating, it came up that his friend was actually his ex-wife. He explained the above to me, saying that she was one of his closest friends and that it was purely platonic. I expressed some discomfort at him being so close to an ex, and he told me, "That's fine. If you have a serious issue with it, let me know and save us some time. I'll choose her. I like you and all, but I've known her for over 12 years, and she is one of the most important people in my life. You'll have to be okay with that if you want us to be a thing." When we were engaged, I asked again. He gave me this perplexed look and asked, why would us getting married affect my friendships? I sucked it up and went along. I resented every moment of knowing her, especially when we had to be social. She understood some part of him that I couldn't. Her husband was friends with mine as well, so it's not like I could use him as an angle. He'd have lunch with the ex, they'd go to their geeky movies and whatever. The few times I brought it up, he said, "We've had this conversation before. You had your chance to back out." She died after they had lunch the other day on the way to her car. He spent a bunch of time crying, but honestly, I was relieved. He was working with her husband on funeral planning. I told him, "You don't think you're going, do you?" My argument summed up, she's dead and she's not a factor anymore. He doesn't get to use his "she's my friend" excuse since she doesn't exist anymore. He had his cry for a couple of days. He gets to be done with mourning her already. There's no need for him to go to her funeral since I wouldn't want her at his. He was the angriest I've ever seen him when I told him that, replying that he'll be going no matter how I feel and that he's willing to burn this to the ground while holding up his wedding band. Besides you, she was the closest friend in my life. Him, her husband, and my sisters are calling me an insensitive asshole over this, all saying that there was no romantic aspect to the relationship and that I'm heartless. Her husband went so far as calling me a ghoul for how I reacted. I never felt their relationship was appropriate, and I hid that for many years because I wanted to be with my husband. Now that she's gone, I don't feel that I should have to hide it anymore and can speak freely. Am I the astronaut for just wanting him to be done with her and for him to not attend the funeral?
This story is a love triangle, love square turned into murder, and it took the cops 4 years to solve, so let's talk about it. Dave Krupa is who we're going to be talking about throughout a lot of this case. He's a 35-year-old man, and he had a very happy childhood. He had parents that were married for over 40 years, but besides having that set example of a loving, happy marriage, he never had any interest in marriage. He did end up dating his coworker. Her name is Amy, and they dated for 12 years. They had a very happy, normal relationship. They lived together, had 2 kids, and they were loyal to each other, happy with each other. She wanted to get married. He never had any interest in marriage. He kind of saw it as tying yourself down. So they were very happy for 12 years, but then Amy was like, well, I want to have more kids and get married, and Dave was like, I don't want any more kids. He got a vasectomy, and Amy kind of saw it as like, all right, well, this isn't really going anywhere. So they separated in 2011. And Dave is now 35, and he's like, okay, I guess I should go on some dating apps. He didn't want to go on Tinder, or he didn't want like too much hookup, but he also didn't want to go on eHarmony or things like that because he wasn't looking for anything serious. So he kind of settled in the middle and joined Plenty of Fish. And girls were into Dave because he was honest about what he wanted. So he didn't want anything serious, and he told them that, and they were doing whatever they were doing, but at least he was being honest about it. So he's on Plenty of Fish. This is when he meets Shanna Liz Goyer. She's a 37-year-old woman. She had a rougher upbringing. She was in foster care. I believe she had a brother her whole life. Her mom ended up passing away in a car accident. Her dad drank himself to death. So by the age of 24, she was married. She had 2 kids. One, unfortunately, and very sadly died at the hands of the baby daddy. So different childhood than Dave. But she just gotten out of a unhealthy long relationship. She was on Plenty of Fish. They started talking. It seemed like they both wanted the same thing, nothing serious, pretty casual, and they were getting along. So they start dating, everything's going well. Dave says that he was having fun with her. She was making him feel very confident. He has not dated in a long time. They were very sexually active together, so she was fun for him, but not girlfriend material. He said that she lacked substance and was a little bit too wild for him. But in Liz's eyes, Dave was perfect for Liz, so she started getting a little bit obsessive. So throughout their whole relationship, Dave was again very honest about what he was looking for. He would tell Liz that he was still dating other women and sleeping with other women, and she would say that she was okay with that, but she really wasn't. She would say little comments, being passive aggressive, saying like, oh, well, I don't sleep around like you do. Dave would say that he was going on other dates. Liz would show up to Dave's, and I think her hope was to tire him out before his dates because they would sleep together, and she would be like, oh, you're too tired, like maybe you shouldn't go on your dates. And Liz knew about Amy and about the co-parenting relationship that Dave and Amy had, and she was kind of getting like possessive of Dave and overprotective, and Dave would be talking to Amy and he would explain to Liz and say, I'm just trying to co-parent, you know, it's none of your business, just chill out, you're getting on my nerves a little bit. They had only been dating for 3 months. And Liz would be like, all right, yeah, I'm cool with it, and then she'd go home and start emailing him about her feelings, wanting him to open up. So Dave was not really in it, but Liz is like, hey, let's just do a 30-day trial. Let's act like we're in a relationship and then see how it goes. And Dave's like, I don't really want to do that, but okay, sure. So they're in this 30-day trial, and that's when Dave meets Carrie. He works at a car shop. Carrie Farver shows up. Carrie Farver is a 38-year-old woman. She is a computer programmer, very smart. She is divorced and has a teenage son. And Dave is starting to talk to her a little bit. She is essentially everything that Liz isn't. There's a fucking spider in my ceiling. Am I gonna kill it? No, because I'm scared, but if it moves, I'm aware that it's there. So Dave doesn't talk to Carrie at first that much because he's still in this 30-day trial. I can't stop staring at the spider. Okay, he doesn't talk to her at first because he's in 30-day trial with Liz, but then the 30-day trial is over. He asks Carrie out on a date. And they're having so much fun. They get along great. She's very witty, down to earth. And Carrie brings up first that she doesn't want anything serious. So Dave is like, you are perfect for me. So Carrie goes back to Dave's apartment after their date, and Liz starts blowing up his phone. She's like, I need to come pick up my phone. Dave is like, this is not a good time. Liz shows up anyway. She ruins their night. Carrie is like, I'm gonna go. This is awkward. So they have a 10-second awkward encounter where Liz is coming into Dave's apartment and Carrie is walking out. They don't say anything to each other, but they do see each other for literally 10 seconds. Dave and Carrie are getting closer. Things with Liz have kind of ran its course. That's over. So he starts spending more time with Carrie. And Carrie's office is really close to where Dave's apartment is. So, okay, it just kind of makes sense for Carrie to spend the night when she has a big project at work because she could just walk to work. One day, Carrie sleeps over and she wakes up before Dave, and she's in the living room with all her papers and stuff. She's doing some work before her meeting, and Dave wakes up, kisses her goodbye, and then leaves. Carrie never shows up to work that morning, and Dave gets an email from Carrie saying, can we move in together? And Dave thinks that she's joking because obviously they are not looking for anything serious. They've never talked about that. So Dave just responds and says no. Carrie goes crazy and she's pissed. She's responding to him being all crazy and say, I'm seeing other people. I don't want anything to do with you anymore. Don't talk to me. So he's like obviously very confused because things had been going really well. And then she sent that weird text asking if they were going to move in together. He says no. And then she goes crazy. He gets back to his apartment after work and all her stuff is gone. Carrie just like she had never been there. So he's like sad about it, but he's not heartbroken. And Carrie unfriends Dave on Facebook and all social media. And then Liz reaches out to Dave and is like, I'm getting really weird texts from Carrie. And Liz gets home and she sees that her garage has been vandalized. It says whore from Dave. So Liz is like reaching out to Dave being like, Carrie is crazy. Look at what she did to my garage. And they both start referring to her as Crazy Carrie. So Liz is freaking out because now Carrie has been inside of her garage and she files a report against Carrie. Carrie emails Dave essentially confessing that that was her that wrote that on Liz's garage. None of her family had seen or heard from Carrie, so her mom is worried because Carrie is sending all these weird, mean texts that are very out of her character. And then in a weird detail, Carrie sends a check to her mom for $5,000 and tells her that she has sold furniture, and her mom is just thrown off because the furniture that she has supposedly sold is all family heirlooms. Later on, Carrie's supervisor gets a text or a letter in the mail saying that she was resigning, and she's like, I'm not going to work here anymore, but don't worry, I have found a replacement for me and she's going to be coming in. So a replacement comes in for Carrie's job, but the replacement doesn't even meet half of the requirements for the position, so that was just weird. So the mom tries to file a missing persons report, but the cops are like, Carrie is a grown woman, she probably just left on her own accord. And then the mom does tell the police that she has been previously diagnosed with bipolar disorder, so the cops are like, okay, she must just be having an episode. But when she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, she had just gone through a really bad divorce and she was also experiencing postpartum. So lately she had been doing fine and well and was very happy with her life. It was just kind of one of those things. So Liz and Dave go talk to the cops for the harassing messages that they had been receiving from Carrie. And right after that, the cops get a text from Carrie herself that says, I don't care about the missing persons report. I'm doing fine. I left on my own accord. Please leave Dave out of this. And then she also confesses that she stole a check. That was the check that she sent to her mom for the furniture. She says that she stole that check from Liz's apartment, and that resulted in an arrest out for Carrie. Liz and Dave are receiving harassing messages and threatening messages from Carrie, and it was weird because a lot of these messages happened when Dave and Liz were together, and a lot of the times they described what they were wearing and what they were doing, so they felt like they were being stalked, and they would try and look out the window and see if they could see Carrie anywhere, but they never could. Carrie's dad passes away while she's missing, and she doesn't show up to the funeral, so that is the biggest sign yet. Carrie's family is like, she absolutely would not miss her dad's funeral. And then also it was her son's birthday, and she was very active on social media. She posted for her son's birthday every single year, and this time she didn't. So she's missed the funeral and she's missed his birthday. So Carrie's family is absolutely freaking out. So because of all the threatening text and emails and everything that Liz and Dave were getting from Carrie, this was bringing them closer together. Dave noticed that Liz was getting clingy again. She would text Dave and call him all the time to talk about Carrie, and he would feel bad and he would feel like he had to be there for Liz. At one point, Carrie sends a text to Dave and says that she is pregnant with his child, but the weird thing is that Dave got a vasectomy when he was back with Amy years ago, and also Carrie had a hysterectomy, so she couldn't have kids either, so it was just a weird thing. One day, Dave notices that Carrie's car is parked in a parking lot near his apartment. So he reports it to the police. The police investigate the car and they find nothing. The car was wiped clean, which was very unusual because Carrie always kept her car really messy. There was nothing there besides one pink stain that resembled strawberry milk or something. And then there was one fingerprint on a can of mints, but they couldn't find a match. At this point, Dave is still dating and he ends up matching and starts dating this one other lady. The lady starts getting threatening messages again from Carrie. So it seems like Carrie is just trying to get in the way of anything and anyone that wants to get involved with Dave. And then one day, Liz's house randomly catches fire. She calls the police, they investigate it, they decide that the fire was arson and nobody was hurt, although Liz's pets did not make it, so 2 dogs, a snake, and a cat died in the fire. That really freaks Liz out. She ends up moving away, and I think she gets a new boyfriend and moves in with him. It is December 2015. Carrie has been missing now for 3 years, and the case had kind of gone cold, but a new set of detectives is in the case now, and they're investigating it again, trying to figure out what Carrie's motive would be. Around this time, Liz goes to the police station and she says that she is still being harassed, getting all these phone calls, texts from emails, but she now doesn't believe that it's Carrie. She now believes that it is Amy, the mom to Dave's kids. And she says that she thinks Amy did something to Carrie, and she also mentions that there was a gun that had been stolen from Dave's house that hadn't been reported, and she told detectives she is terrified that Amy was going to come after her and she's scared that she has already done something to Carrie. So police doubt that it's Carrie now. So they ask Liz to download data from her phone to see if they can find any evidence that links everything back to Amy. Soon after reporting everything to the police, Liz decides to take an evening walk in the park. She ends up calling 911 and she says that someone attacked her while she was walking and shot her in the leg. She says that she didn't see her attacker, but that she heard their voice and it was Amy. So police are searching the park for the attacker. They don't find anything, so they go back to Amy's house, and Amy is in her pajamas, her baby's in the crib, and she's obviously very confused as to why the cops are there. It says that she didn't shoot anyone in the park. Cops determined that Amy was telling the truth and there was no arrest made. So now the cops are like thinking that this is all Liz. So they convince her that they believe her, and they tell her they need her help finding evidence to arrest Amy. The police tell Liz the information that only Carrie's killer would know. Then magically, somehow, Liz shows up to the police station shortly after with an email that comes from Amy. It's a detailed confession about Carrie's abduction from back in 2012. And the email allegedly said that Amy had abducted Carrie and described her abduction, saying that she was stabbed in the stomach and the chest and that she was burned beyond recognition and disposed of in the trash. The email contained information that had not been given to the public, so that led police to believe that Carrie had actually been murdered over 3 years earlier when she originally went missing. The police decide that they need to investigate Carrie's vehicle again, but the vehicle had been sold, so they find the new owners. The new owners give permission to search the car, and after removing the cushion, they discovered that that pink stain that they thought was some sort of strawberry milk or something was actually blood, Carrie's blood, and that the fingerprint on the mint box was a match to Liz. Liz calls the police. She's pissed. She is rambling on to the police about how she's so pissed that Amy's doing all these things and still gets to be with Dave. So they're trying to explain to Dave why they think that this is Liz. And Dave is like, there's no way that this could be Liz, because a lot of the times that we got these threatening messages, we were together. But during the phone download on Liz's phone, they found an app that could alter your voice for phone calls, and they also found an app or something along that sort that can schedule text messages to be sent later throughout the day. During the investigation, they also discovered that the IP address that Carrie was texting from ended up being from someone's house named Garrett. Garrett was the boyfriend of Liz. They questioned Garrett, and Garrett would say that they were kind of together, that Liz was living in his house, but she was very detached from the relationship. She would just essentially be in the basement all day on her computer doing God knows what. They also find out that Liz was the person that showed up when Carrie emailed or sent a letter to her employer saying that she was resigning, but that there was a replacement coming in for her. Liz was the person that showed up as her replacement. So Liz was essentially trying to take over Carrie's life. Liz was arrested in December 16th, 2016, 4 years after the disappearance of Carrie. Liz denied everything and she requested a lawyer, and the police thought that the case was strong but not strong enough until Dave remembered that he had a tablet in a storage unit that Liz had access to. So the police go to the storage unit, get the tablet out, and they find an SD card belonging to Liz. In the SD card, they found a photo of a decomposed human foot with Carrie's tattoo on it. So Liz's lawyers were saying that without a body, there was not enough evidence for a murder charge, but the prosecution argued that the amount of Carrie's blood in the car matched with the stabbing confession that originated from the IP address where Liz was living, and the disturbing picture of Carrie's foot proved that she was deceased. So in 2017, Liz was convicted for the murder of Carrie and was charged with a life sentence without the possibility of parole. To this day, Liz sticks to her story that it was Amy that did everything and that she is innocent, but she is now in prison serving her sentence.
My bratty little stepsister tried to ruin my little brother's life, but trust me, she'll never try anything like that again. My parents got divorced 10 years ago, and what do you know? Less than 2 months after they separate, he's already moving in with his new girlfriend. She wasn't new. We all know she was the other woman. And with my new stepmommy came my little stepsister, who was fine when she couldn't really talk and didn't really have a personality. But as soon as her personality started developing, it was all bad. There wasn't anything good about it. Let me tell you, she takes after her mother for sure. Now she's 14, and one of the most annoying things is that she's objectively a beautiful girl, captain of the volleyball team. She's in choir. She gets straight A's. She's super popular, but she is a terrible person. And my dad and stepmom don't see it. Well, obviously my stepmom doesn't see it because she's just a mini version of her. But my dad thinks that my stepsister can do no wrong. She is like the little princess. She gets everything she wants. Like, I was not treated like that growing up. That's all I'm gonna say. And my little brother is 2 years younger than my stepsister. He doesn't get treated like that. She gets everything, and he's basically the forgotten child. When I was 18, I moved out, and then my little brother was just stuck with my dad, my stepmom, and my stepsister. So he begged and cried to live with my mom and my stepdad full time, but my dad wasn't having any of that. He was like, nope, that's not what the custody is. So yeah, he's stuck in that house. Last weekend, my little brother called me and begged me to come to my dad's house and hang out with him on Saturday night because it was one of my dad's weekends, and him and my stepmom were going out to dinner, and it was just going to be him and my terrible stepsister home alone together. And he says that she just torments him, which I've seen. But apparently since I've moved out, it's gotten even worse. So I told him that I would come over and hang out with him. We could watch movies and just, vibe. I get over there after my dad and my stepmom have already left because honestly, I did not want to have to do the fake niceties with my stepmom. Immediately, I walk into the living room and I see my bratty little stepsister. She barely looks up from her phone, gives me the stink eye, and it's like, have you been stressed lately, Kels? And I was like, why? Like, where are you going with this? You're not concerned about my well-being? She's like, well, I just heard that people gain weight and have, acne breakouts when they're stressed. So I was just wondering. Then she spent 10 minutes going on about all the good things in her life, being like, yeah, like, your dad told me that I get way better grades than you ever did. And I heard that you were never good at this sport and I'm incredible at it. Just like rubbing it in my face, which I don't care. Like, I'm sorry. I'm not intimidated by a 14-year-old girl. But this is what she does to my little brother. She makes him feel like an idiot and inferior to her all the time. Then, thank God, her phone rings, and she's like, I gotta go. I have people that actually want to talk to me, and walks off. She has the loudest voice in the world, so I overheard her conversation, and she was just talking smack with one of her friends about her other friend, and they were mean, like tearing this girl apart, the way she looked, the way she dressed, her personality, like everything about her. It was some of the meanest things I've ever heard somebody say about their friend. Surprisingly, after that, I didn't hear anything from her. Normally, she comes down every hour to say something snarky, but she was just minding her own business. I was like, maybe she's maturing a little bit. I was wrong. I got a call from my dad that him and my stepmom were going to be home in about 10 minutes. And again, didn't want to do the niceties with my stepmom. So I told my little brother I was going to go, and I just called up to my stepsister, hey, parents are going to be home in 10. I'm leaving. Just wanted to let you know. Why did I let her know? That was none of her business. About 30 seconds later, I hear the loudest crash I've ever heard in my life. Me and my little brother are looking at each other like, what is going on? And then it's followed by more and more crashes. Like things are breaking, like there's huge loud thumps. We have no idea what's going on. So I go up the stairs and I see my stepsister destroying her room, taking everything, throwing it on the floor, tipping over her furniture. Like it was wild. So I go in there and I'm screaming at her, like, what are you doing? And she's not even fazed. Like, it is like I am not even there. She is tearing all her clothes off the hangers, ripping them to shreds. I am like, what is happening right now? But as soon as we heard the garage door open, she suddenly stopped in her tracks and looked at me with this like little smile. It was actually the most terrifying thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Immediately when she hears the door open, she bursts into tears and runs down the stairs wailing. I was like, what is going on? She ran right into my stepmother's arms and she was in hysterics. She was like, did you hear what he did to my room? He ruined everything. Who? I'm looking around. I'm like, what is she talking about? That's when she points to my little brother who's just minding his business eating Cheetos on the couch. Like, what was he? He was on the couch the whole time. And before I even have a chance to say anything, she's dragging both my dad and my stepmom up the stairs to show the damage. And her room, I do not even know how that girl got that done in 10 minutes. It looked horrific. So me and my little brother are standing at the door and we're like, she did this. I was like, I saw this with my own eyes. She wrecked her own room. And then she starts sobbing louder. She was like, why do you guys hate me? Why do you do this to me? Why would I do this? Why would I wreck my own room? Like, he did this for no reason. And my dad and my stepmom are comforting her. And they were like, Kels, how could you lie? Like, I know you love your little brother, but this is ridiculous. This is horrible. Then she says, and all my money is gone too. Yeah, and when they checked my little brother's room, guess where all of her money is? Yeah, in my little brother's room. My little brother didn't leave the couch. And I get into the biggest fight with them. I'm like, I saw this with my own eyes. Like, she did this. She's terrible. She's terrible. And of course, my bratty little stepsister is there sobbing, like putting on the performance of a lifetime. Like, that girl has a career in acting, which I told you she's good at a lot of things. My dad starts screaming at my little brother and looks at him and says, I don't even know how you're my son. Like, I can't even believe that I'm related to you. So they obviously ground my little brother, send him to his room, and he's a mess. He's shaking, he's crying, and he tells me that she's been doing these kind of things for months. And this one happened to be the most severe, but she's been breaking things around the house for months. He would literally see her do it, and she would just blame him, and they always believe her because she's the golden child, even though there's literally no proof at all that it was my brother. They just take her word for it. The worst part is the last time my stepsister framed my little brother for something, my dad apparently told him that he would be sent to military school, and my little brother is not the kind of kid that would do well in military school, okay? And this is the point that my bratty little stepsister waltzes into my little brother's bedroom with the biggest smirk on her face. And she's like, see, now I'm not gonna have to see your ugly face around here anymore. The feeling of rage that went through my body, I cannot even describe it. But surprisingly, I kept my cool. And I just looked at her and said, I think that we all need to cool off for the night. So why don't you just go back to your room and go to sleep? My brother looked at me confused. I think he thought I was going to scream at her or something, do something a big sister should do. But I looked at him and I said, don't worry. This will be fixed tomorrow. I'll make sure of it. That night at 2 a.m., I snuck into the guest room my bratty little stepsister was sleeping in because she destroyed her bed, so she couldn't sleep in it. And let me tell you, that girl snores. So I knew as long as I was quiet, I could go in there and not wake her up. So, super quiet, I go in and I unplug her phone from the nightstand. Luckily, she's on her phone 24/7, so I've seen her type in her passcode, so it was super easy for me to get into it. And also, because she's such a loud talker and always on the phone, I knew all of her friends' names. And after I heard her phone conversation with her friend the night before, I knew that she had to be talking trash about everybody in her life. So I spent the entire night going through this girl's text messages and picking out the worst ones, screenshotting them, and sending them to myself. These texts were saying the most horrendous things about her friends, like terrible. I could not even imagine if my friend said those things about me. She also said terrible things about my dad, my stepmom, literally everybody. She also confessed to her friends in her text messages that she did all those terrible things that she was blaming my brother for and laughing about them and saying how much of an idiot my parents are and how she can get away with anything because they're so stupid and she has them so wrapped around her finger. I was like, this is perfect. This is amazing. You know, karma, baby, karma. Luckily, because my bratty little stepsister is still in school, she has a school directory where everybody's names and addresses are in a book and everyone gets one. And I know where my dad keeps them because I used to have them growing up. So I went and I found all of her friends' addresses. I made little envelopes, wrote their name on in cursive, and put all of the printed out text messages that she wrote about them in a little envelope. And I felt like Santa Claus in the morning. I was just delivering little Christmas miracles for my brother at all of her friends' doors. And I knew that they started getting the envelopes and reading the text messages and the terrible things that she said about them when I heard the most horrific scream coming from her room. I mean, it was the most beautiful sound I've ever heard. I was like, it's justice. It's the sound of justice. So she comes running down the stairs, red face, mascara down her cheek. She's like, who did this? Who did this? And I'm like, who do you think? Like, there's not that many options for who could have done. You think my little brother did? He's 12, okay? He's not even that good at Legos. She starts going off at me. She's like, I'm going to make it so that your dad never talks to you again. You're going to be banished from this house. Like, she's just going off. Little does she know, my stepmom and my dad are in their bedroom reading all of the things she said about them and admitting to doing all those things and blaming my little brother. So when my dad and stepmom finally came out of their bedroom, they looked like they were gonna puke. And she knew immediately by the look on their face that they got a little Christmas present as well. My dad looks at me and goes, Kels, take your little brother and hang out with him for the afternoon. We need to have a serious conversation with your stepsister. I was like, bye, okay, I'm out. Okay, everyone have a good weekend, have a good weekend. From the one conversation I've had with my dad since this entire incident, it sounds like, yeah, my stepsister is not coping too well with not being the golden child. And they're actually considering sending her to boarding school because they don't understand how somebody can do those things and like feel okay about them. But don't worry, I made sure to let her know that I had text messages that she sent talking about her principal, all her teachers, so many other people that if she ever messed with my little brother again, this wouldn't be the last time she was exposed.